All right, everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. And Brody is here. I know, bombshell, boombasso. Here we go. Brody is
Let's
back,
go.
and I think this could possibly be his last video because obviously we all know uploading is going to be inconsistent this year. And as I say, I feel like for a lot of videos now, this video wasn't planned. I know, just that could be like a whole like quote Cheyenne thing. This video wasn't planned, but here we are. Brody and I were just talking about a few things, and of course, the Seahawks ever so recently won the Super Bowl, and it got a lot of people thinking, and it got a lot of people talking. And Brody was talking to me about something when it came to the Seahawks, and this is actually going to be majorly his video. I'm going to chime in on it. I don't really know a whole lot about American football, but I'm not oblivious to understanding what we're going to talk about because a lot of people have spoken to me about a very similar topic. So I thought, okay, this would be actually a good video that we could do on the channel and something a little bit different. You guys might like it. And so we're going to be talking about can the Sounders learn something from the Seahawks? It'll be titled something along those lines. And yeah, I think the best way to start off the video is kind of talking about, Brody, what did the Seahawks do? And then kind of leading that into the discussion. And as I said, Brody's going to carry most of it, and then I will add on as the video goes on. But yeah, what did the Seahawks do, Brody?
Well, first and foremost, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be back to where it all began. To record another video with the godfather of Sounders YouTube, with perhaps the most handsome man on YouTube, just period. And I'm look, I got him blushing over here already. Look at that. I'm stoked. For those of you guys that have been wondering where I've been, I haven't left the internet. I actually, me and J Ross both, we actually do a podcast, and it's a Seattle sports podcast. So we got the Sounders, but not just them. Sounders, Seahawks, Mariners, all that good stuff. It's called Sound on Sports. If you guys were curious about our whereabouts, that's where we're over. If you guys want to check it out. Nonetheless, I am back. I was so excited when Sean brought this idea to me. I was like, yes, this is perfect. I was one of the people that texted him my exact thoughts on this, and it was just what a amazing video idea. Because I just really think it's like, I mean, we were talking about this, but I think it's so crazy how, because a lot of Seattle sports fans, a lot of Sounder fans are also Seahawk fans. Like, I would say majority of them
It
are.
goes hand in hand.
Exactly, right. And it just kind of boggles my mind how people see what's happened with the Seahawks, the turnaround that we've had in such a short amount of time, and like are so stoked, obviously, because it led us to the Super Bowl, but then see what we do with the Sounders. And it's like no critiques, no nothing, no like wishing. Maybe, we could learn a thing or two from the Seahawks here. That was just kind of boggling my mind. So nonetheless, I wanted to make this video. And I guess we'll start with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, this year, if you're living under a rock, Seahawks won the Super Bowl, went 14-3, first seed in the NFC.
One supporter
Basically,
shield.
one of them. Exactly. Yep. Look at that. Basically, won the supporter shield of the NFL in dominating fashion. The only three losses they had lost by a combined total of 9 points. So it was just pure domination. A team with a young head coach, a young roster, took a lot of risks all around the board to make this happen, but it happened. It all came together beautifully. And it's not like it was overnight. A lot of big decisions had to be made, but ultimately it all came together. The Seahawks got the job done, and the Seahawks, they won the Super Bowl. They're champions now. And, I would love that for my Sounders. I really would. Before we talk about the Seahawks rebuild, we need to talk about why it happened. All right, so obviously
The origin story.
The origin story, the backstory, the lore, if you will. Obviously, around the 2011, 2012 to like 2015 period was the Seattle Seahawks glory days, the Legion of Boom. That amazing defense, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, Marshawn Lynch, all those guys, right? Probably the most beloved team in Seattle sports history. And, they did amazing things. They were one of the most dominant teams of all time. And basically what happened was the Seahawks, probably from like 2015 all the way until I'd say the first major change was around 2022, was kind of just like a period of good, solid, but not great. A lot of like 10-6, 11-5, 9-7, winning the division, second place in the division, sneaking into the playoffs, getting bounced in the first round or the second round. No, it was a lot of that for the longest period of time. And, it reminds me a lot of what the Sounders have become basically ever since 2019, 2020. I mean, as far as MLS goes, the Sounders have really just been a one and done team in the playoffs, even missing the playoffs in 2022. Obviously, you throw in the CCL there. That was, after the CCL is kind of the real downfall. And then obviously you throw in the Leagues Cup. But overall, just from a team that was so dominant from like that 2016 to 2019, 2020, even obviously 2022 winning the CCL, a team that was considered like an MLS dynasty almost. I mean, obviously prime Ladero, prime Rui Diaz, like everything was just perfect. And ever since then, it's kind of been, a lot of good, not great, just like the Seahawks. But this is the main difference between the Seahawks and the Sounders. Is that the Sounders keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they're happy with it. They're like, okay, we're fine being this like good but not great team. We're still the Sounders. We won MLS Cup a couple times, and we won the CCL, first and only American team to do so. And it's just like good enough. And for the most part, a lot of fans are happy about it. Whereas the Seahawks are like, okay, like the 9-8, the 10-7, making the playoffs every year is cool, but come on, like, is this really as good as it gets? Really? And basically, that's where the shift happens. And I'm going to break this into 4 parts because there's 4 key factors as to what the Seahawks did to rebuild. And what we're going to basically do here is for each 4 of the Seahawks reasons as to why they were able to rebuild and build a Super Bowl championship roster and team, I'm going to kind of relay it back to the Sounders, in some sort of unique fashion. And Sean will chime in with his lovely comments here and there. But the first thing is the ownership. Okay, the Seahawks owner, the majority owner for the longest time was Paul Allen, rest in peace, which is now just Paul Allen's estate kind of ran by his relative. And the first and foremost is that the ownership cared about the team. Cared about the team, whether it was just from them showing up to games, them investing into the squad heavily when you had good players, being willing to pay them and pay them a massive amount, being able to, encourage your general manager to make big moves because you're going to back them, you're going to pay those players, you're going to really invest in the team and the city. And that's just the biggest thing. It all starts with the ownership because to make a team great, it literally all starts from them. Your owner has to care about the team. Your owner has to be smart, calculated, and just truly invested in your team. And that's exactly what Paul Allen was. And this team is forever Paul Allen's legacy. And you compare that to the Sounders, where we got Adrian Henauer, which is like, not really wanting to spend money on the squad. He'll occasionally drop some money here and there, but it's kind of like, I'll sprinkle in a little bit, and then you guys, you little peasants, will be good enough. You guys can chew on that for a few years, and then maybe I'll sprinkle in a little $3 million player, stuff like that, where it's like you're kind of just getting by. It's not like you're really 100% invested. You're making a lot of side purchases in the meantime, like reinventing the stadium, or not the stadium, but the practice facilities, buying the rain, and all sorts of other business ventures. Or it's like the Sounders aren't even really, as far as building a championship level team, not really our owner's main focus right now. And that's just the two. That's at the very, very top right away, the 2 biggest differences. Okay, and then the second biggest difference is the players. That's the second part of how the Seahawks rebuilt, is the players. Obviously, everyone in Seattle, the most famous person in Seattle, no, not Jordan Morris Foppy, was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was one of the most famous people in Seattle for the longest time. And, he was the guy, man. He was the face of Seattle. He was the Pro Bowl quarterback, the most important position of any sport on the planet. He was that guy, and he was having big season after big season, a top 5 player in his position for the longest time. And, we paid him a lot of money, and he kind of just carried those Seahawk teams from 2015 to 2021 or 2, where they were kind of just like good but not great. It was kind of Russell Wilson and then, Russell Wilson and friends, pretty much. And the biggest domino that fell was in 2022 in March in the offseason when Russell Wilson was kind of coming off his worst year as a Seahawk. He was kind of getting older. He's hitting that like 32, 33 range where, in quarterback years, it's like you're starting to come out of your prime a little bit. Especially a guy like Russell, who's athletic. He uses his legs a lot. That's the biggest component, one of the biggest components to how he was so good in his peak was his legs, his athletic ability. That was starting to fade off a bit. He just kind of came off of a big hand injury as well. And our general manager, John Schneider, the Seahawks general manager, just had the absolute gall, the cojones to just be like, you know what? We are going to send Russell Wilson away. Even though the league's going to go crazy, the fans are going to lose their mind. It's going to be an absolute shit show. And I'm going to take a lot of heat, but I don't care because I can see the fall off coming. So I'm going to trade him while his value is still at the top. Does that sound like a position that the Sounders have been in previously? Potentially. Maybe a certain guy. I know he's a Sounder legend. I know we love him, but, there was a point of time where Jordan Morris was a big draw in the MLS, kind of still in his prime, but kind of exiting his prime, obviously battled a lot of injuries. And there was a time where the Sounders really could have moved Jordan Morris for value. He had interest in the league, maybe even in Europe, but for sure in the league. And Sounders didn't do that. Sounders gave him a blank check, made him a DP. And obviously you can see how that's unfortunately turned out. But regardless, the Seahawks said, fuck that. We're going to trade away Russell Wilson while the iron is hot. We're going to strike while the iron is hot. And like I said, everyone lost their minds. They're like, what are we doing? The ceiling is crumbling. What are we going to do? And then on top of that, on the defensive side of the ball, I don't know if you know who this is, Sean, but a guy named Bobby Wagner, who's like a big time Seattle Seahawk legend for sure. Like, if you ask anyone on the street your top 5 Seahawks, they're going to have Bobby Wagner in it. He was that dude. And we released him. We didn't even trade him we didn't even trade him for anything. We just said, bye, you're making too much money. Bye-bye.
Does that not, that reminds me of someone that we could have let walk too.
A lot of parallels, dude. Like a lot of kind of eerily similar parallels and just two polar opposite decisions being made.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to do this video. It's just so funny to see like how so many things are so similar and it's just two franchises making the complete opposite decisions and you kind of see how it's turned out for
both. It's crazy. It's both from the same exact city too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's just, again, just to touch on that original point I made, like the same exact city, the same exact fan base for the most part. Seeing the Seahawks and they're like, we're amazing. Our general manager is a genius. Our owner's a genius. And then seeing the Sounders and we're just like, yep, we're good. We don't want that. We don't want that for the Sounders. It's okay for the Seahawks to do this. Not the Sounders, though.
We don't want too much joy.
The Sounders we'll just take our little first round exit every year and then we'll go. With an occasional, maybe advance to the second round or even a conference final. And then we'll pack our bags. We're okay with that. It's just mind-boggling how that's the case. But anyways, so those two moves happen. The Seahawks go into the next year with Geno Smith or Drew Lock as the quarterback, which was not everyone's like, the Seahawks are going to suck. They're going to be terrible. They're going to probably be battling for a top 3 pick in the draft. And then it turns out, Geno Smith actually ended up being a pretty good quarterback for us. And what happened for the Broncos is that they traded for Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson went right off a cliff.
Yeah,
right off a cliff. And when we traded Russell Wilson, we got draft picks for him. We got 2 first-round picks, which are like the first round's the most important round. And because Russell was so bad with the Broncos, they sucked so bad that we ended up with the 5th overall pick from trading Russell Wilson. But that was the first domino. Is like you already moved off of Russell, just his expensive ass contract. But not only that, but you got a top 5 pick for him. So it's already the first domino and a lot of moves being made. And that draft is where we got Devon Witherspoon, who's the best player on the Seahawks defense, super young. And then also we drafted JSN, Jackson Smith and Jegba, also more famous in Seattle than Jordan Morris.
I know him too.
See, if China knows him, then there you go. Exactly. But that draft was like the real change of the tide. Like, this is okay. We're really starting to make something happen here. And then obviously the draft before, we drafted Charles Cross, our offensive lineman, which is really important. Really important to have because you protect the quarterback with him. But nonetheless, so we did that. And then obviously, I don't know if you know DK Metcalf, big wide receiver. Yeah. Okay. So we had DK Metcalf also. And then now here's the second instance of us being okay to move off of players. So, like I mentioned, Geno Smith replaced Russell Wilson in Seattle, and he was doing good. He was playing like a actual Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. But again, same thing, similar with Russ. Like, he's 34, 35. He wants to be paid another big deal again for even more money. And it's kind of like, okay, maybe we're not going to do that. So instead of paying the money, John Schneider goes, yep, I know you're a starting quarterback. I know you've been great for us. Bye. Again, see you later. Ships him to Oakland for a third-round pick. And then DK Metcalf's like, hey, I want to be paid like the best wide receiver in the NFL. And then the Seahawks are like, yeah, that's cool. See you later. Bye. Again. And then he's out. DK Metcalf. And another two moves where fans were kind of split on Geno Smith going, but when DK Metcalf got traded, everyone's like, no, it's over. He's our star wide receiver. What are we doing? No. And then not only that, dude, we cut. Do you know Tyler Lockett? We also released Tyler Lockett, which we didn't even trade. We didn't even get anything for him in a trade. He was just making so much money. He's getting old. So we're just like, bye. So, of course, the fans are like, what, Tyler Lockett? No, he's like one of the most beloved players in the Seahawks franchise. So we made all of those moves, and everyone, again, is mad at John Schneider. Okay? What happens? Seahawks signed Sam Darnold in free agency. The Seahawks say, you know what, Jackson Smith and Jigba, we just drafted you. We think you're going to be the guy. We don't even need to really – we can sign some veterans like Cooper Kupp to come in to be a wide receiver too. But, Jackson, you're going to be the main guy. And that was the season. And then, obviously, coming into the year, we're like, Seahawks will still kind of be – they're still a young team, new quarterback, a lot of changes going on here. They'll probably be like a 9, 8, 10, 7 team. Maybe we'll make the playoffs. And then they went out and won the freaking Super Bowl. So that just shows you right there. In Section 2, the players, all of that player changing, all of those risks that John Snyder had to put his cojones on the table and say, we are not giving in. I know, Russell Wilson, you are the most famous person in Seattle, not Jordan Morris. You got to go. Bye. Okay, we're not going to pay you all that money. We're going to get picks for you. Okay, cool. Bobby Wagner, you're a legend. It's time to go, okay? Geno Smith, you've been good for us. Time to go. DK Metcalf, time to go. All these moves that were like, at the time, everyone's freaking out because they're like, what are we doing? This is our team. This is like, we're going to be terrible. And then look at that. The Seahawks are now Super Bowl champions, and they're going to be contenders for the next several years. So a lot of, again, just similarities to where the Sounders had multiple opportunities to move off of players. And this is, again, I want to stress this point because a lot of Seattle fans think, like, if you want a player to go or just think they're not a good fit anymore, or you want to move off and get something in a trade for them or whatever the case may be, they think, like, oh, my God, you must think they're the worst person ever. You think you want them and their family to die, and you just hate their guts. It's like, no, dude. Like, for example, like Albert Rusnak, he's a good player. Okay, no one's saying he's a bad player. Okay, but when it came time to be like, hey, should we maybe move off of a 30-year-old instead of paying him high-end DP money, making him the most paid player on the team? Maybe that's a situation where you kind of move off of a guy like that and try and pursue someone better, someone younger. The MLS is getting better year by year. The league's getting better. Maybe we kind of want to take a next step into that era and really adapt to the new times. And the Sounders didn't do that. The Sounders tied their money down to Albert Rusnak, to Jordan Morris. And again, it's not like the Sounders suck, right? They don't suck, but they're in kind of that purgatory where it's like, you're not bad enough to where you can just kind of tank, but you're not good enough to where you can constantly be a MLS Cup favorite and making championships every other year and winning MLS Cups. We're just in that purgatory in the middle where you're like, you're good, but not great. You're decent. You're solid. You could maybe do some stuff, but you're not great. You
And then
know
you can even add to the mix, like the one trophy that we did win was without those two guys. So it even adds another
exactly
layer to this discussion.
because it just shows you that the group, like the core players, just the squad players, it's there. That's fine. Now to take it over the top though is where you have those DP players. That's the whole point of designated players. You pay them whatever you want, and they're the ones that take you over the edge. The Sounders, it sucks because this core for the last 4 or 5 years has been really good. Just the back line I've always liked, where Yamar, Alex New, like I'm fine with them. Christian in the middle, JP. Now we're from JP to Obed to whoever. Like the role players are there, but the DPS, man, like that's what really brings you over the hump. And oh yeah, yeah, it's just like I said, two franchises in Seattle, complete opposite directions. Um, and then we move on to the third section, and that is the coach. And if you guys have watched me on RGTV, I've been a Brian defender. I'm more notoriously a Brian defender, but at the same time, I can also understand being a Seahawks fan. Hey, Pete Carroll, legendary coach, arguably one of the best Seattle coaches ever, and probably a Hall of Fame NFL coach. It's not like he was necessarily doing a horrible job. He was still getting the Seahawks to, good records, positive winning records, playoff appearances and stuff. But the Seahawks, again, were like, it's good, but it's not great. It's not the best that we could do. And we're trying to be a franchise that's going for championships, that has championship aspirations year after year. And the Seahawks were just never there. They were just kind of the tier or two beneath that. And as much as I love Brian Schmetzer, of course I do. It's gonna get to a point where it's like, as much as we love you, these first round barely scraping in the playoffs, these first round exits, second round exits consistently, like maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And that's what the Seahawks thought when they let go of their Hall of Fame head coach, which again, when Pete got fired, the majority of the fan base, what is happening? What are we doing? This is ridiculous. He was the only reason he won us a Super Bowl 10 years ago, blah, 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 blah. And the Seahawks took a big risk because with their head coach, there was a lot of established names, like what's his name? Dan Quinn, who was the defensive coordinator when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. There's guys like him. Just I don't remember exactly every candidate that was on the market, but there's a lot of established guys. And the Seahawks said, you know what? We're going to go in a different direction here. We're going to go with someone who's never been a head coach, but we've interviewed him. We've talked to people around the league. Everyone is in agreement that this guy is a defensive genius. He is a young, up-and-coming football brain. And his schemes, his defensive schemes and play calling are going to be next level. Even though he hasn't been a head coach in the NFL, there was a lot of potential, and it was a big risk, especially moving on from an established Hall of Fame coach. The Seahawks went and hired Mike McDonald, and that was a move that was questioned by a lot of fans. Like, what? Why? Why? You have the guy, you have the head coach. Change other stuff around the roster. You don't need to fire the coach. And Seahawks said, nope, that's fine. Pete, you've been a legend. Bye-bye. And then they brought in Mike McDonald, and after the first year, the Seahawks were still kind of mid. They were like 10-7. Again, that's sort of, solid, but not great. And a lot of people at first were like, oh, this guy just replaced Pete, and look, we're still in the same thing. It's like, okay, you got to give him some time. Like, hold on a second. It's not even his roster. You got to be patient, right? And the next year, Mike McDonald goes out and wins the damn Super Bowl. And now he's going to be the head coach. He's only he's not even 40 yet. He's going to be our head coach for the foreseeable future. And that's all because the Seahawks were willing to take a risk. And what I also like about Mike McDonald is Sean, the way that American football kind of works is there's, obviously offense and defense. There's a guy that calls the offensive plays. There's a guy that calls the defensive plays. McDonald is a defensive play caller and a head coach. So he's got all the defense, but he's got to hire somebody. The coaches hire their assistants, and he's got to hire an offensive guy to run the offense. And his first offensive hire was a guy named Ryan Grubb, who coached college football, a college football offense that went to the national championship. So he had a lot of success there. He didn't really like the offense after the first year. So instead of being like, let's just be okay with what we're at, he said, nope, I want better. Immediately just said, I can find better. Let's be cutthroat here. It's nothing personal to business, but I don't like your philosophy. It doesn't match up with mine. Bye-bye. See you later. And then he hires a guy named Clint Kubiak, who after having an amazing offense this season, just got hired as an NFL head coach.
He just got hired to a new job. I heard about this guy.
Exactly.
Right after the Super Bowl.
Right after the Super Bowl, only 1 year with the Seahawks. And that all happened because Mike Macdonald was cutthroat and said, I don't give a fuck if it's 1 year. Bye. And then look at that. Hires Clint Kubiak, wins the Super Bowl. Now he gets promoted to NFL head coach. So it was just all in all, it was a big risk for the Seahawks to move on from a Hall of Fame NFL head coach like Pete Carroll.
But doesn't that, sorry to interrupt you, Brody, but doesn't that also give shades of what happened with Schmetzer too? Like, doesn't that have because think about Siggy, arguably one of the greatest ever MLS coaches. Brian Schmetzer had never been a head coach before. You gave, we just took a chance on him as the interim and just gave it. Because I remember if you guys remember, I think it was Shalota, who ended up being the Galaxy coach, was in the candidacy for us. And there was a lot of high profile coaches that were in the hat, but we just went with Schmetzer. And then
won the MLS Cup and then had a lot of success several years after that. Yeah. And I mean, the sentiment at the time, to be fair, I don't remember the whole exact sentiment. Maybe you remember it better than me, but I was pretty young. But at least the way I can say is like you said, Ziggy Schmidt was one of the best coaches of all time. And yeah, obviously you haven't won the MLS Cup yet, but you're still, won the Supporters Shield, won several Open Cups. He was bringing success, but not, MLS Cup success or not MLS success. And that's kind of similar to Brian right now. You're throwing a Leagues Cup. That was cool. Throwing a CCL a few years ago. It was cool, but the MLS success is not there. So we've seen the Sounders being able to make that cutthroat decision and move on to uncertainty, take a shot on somebody, and it paid off. And that's another crazy thing is you've seen it literally paid off for you before. So what's the hesitancy to maybe? And again, I'm not saying Brian's I can point to several different problems. There's several different. To be honest with you, he's probably one of the last problems that I would look at before I'd go owner, GM, which we'll get to, and then some of the players. But at the same time,
this was all just the point of discussion. It's just kind of stirring the pot. It's not like we're saying, F Brian, this, and you brought that already.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's just all topic of discussion, in my opinion. You got to look at the past to see the future. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's like when the Seahawks fired Pete Carroll, it's not like it's like fuck Pete Carroll. It's like you're a legend, you're amazing, but
hate that guy. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like that. It's like you're a legend, but we want to go in a different direction.
Father Time is undefeated. Yeah,
exactly. We want someone who can adapt to the way that football is changing, and that's exactly what we did, and it paid off. And number 4, the fourth component is the general manager, John Schneider, compared to the incompetent Craig Weibel. It is just so night and day. It's just honestly baffling to see how John Schneider has moved like an absolute G for the last 10, 15 years. And just comparing to Craig Weibel, it's like,
we're still waiting on that summer signing.
Exactly. Still waiting on that summer signing, still waiting on, just a lot of things, man. Still waiting on a lot of things. Still waiting on his hair to grow. But anyways, so John Schneider, dude, we've already talked about it basically this whole video, but this man has just made cutthroat decision after cutthroat decision, risk after risk. So many smart, calculated moves, regardless of what the people think, what the fans think, even Pete Carroll thought, because Pete Carroll was sitting there trying to fight for his job, and John's like, yeah. Out, buddy.
See you later.
Yeah. And so we used to have a GM like that. Obviously, Garth. Garth made a lot of big time decisions, regardless if Brian agreed with it, if whoever agreed with it,
I think a big one that sticks out for me was transitioning from 2015 to 2016 with just selling Oba last minute in the window. And at the time, it didn't look like it worked out well, but then you end up getting Ladero.
Mm-hmm.
And then
the rest is history. Exactly. It's like it's like you have the GM hired because you believe in them to be able to make their own calculated decisions, and even if it doesn't work out right away, you trust them to be like, okay, we sell Oba, but we're gonna hit on our next signing and our next signing, and we're gonna make a lot of these moves, and we're gonna build a championship roster. That's what they're hired to do. Now, if you have a guy in office where you're like, you don't even have faith in them to budget them with money to make these moves, or you just don't even have the faith in them in general. It's like, dude, what that can't be your general manager. That just can't be your GM. Where it's like John Snyder, there's a reason he's had the job for 15 years. Okay, because he's an absolute G. He's a gangsta. All right, and yeah, I mean, it's not too much more to talk about John Snyder because we just kind of laid out everything he's ever done for the Seahawks, pretty much. But again, that fourth component is just a general manager who's willing to be cutthroat. And I guess I'll bring up one more point. Is like to just compare him to Greg Weibel again. Is like you see those instances where players are demanding, like, I want to be paid X. I want to be paid for 3-4 more years, and with this amount of raise. And he's like, yeah, cool, all right, buddy. Then he can do that elsewhere. Gets rid of him. And whereas kind of like Craig Weibel's like, yeah, Albert Rusnak, please stay. Please, where will this club be without you? It's like, it's just the
It's almost like you see the whole scope of the chessboard. Not one singular player is bigger than your morals uh of what you want. It's almost like, this might be a very wild comparison, but I'm gonna use like a somewhat realistic one. Like, let's say with women, like you're a guy who doesn't go out or doesn't go drink or doesn't do these things, but there's a girl you're kind of interested to, and you break your morals for that girl or what you don't already do. So you can appeal to them. And I think in
yeah.
this sense, you're like, well, we maybe don't want to give you a 6 times pay raise in your contract because it kind of, handcuffs us a little bit, or, maybe we'll be willing to look elsewhere because you're not really a DP worthy player in 2025, 2026, or yeah, I think I'm kind of starting to see the downfall of of your career, and I don't think you need to be one of our highest paying threshold players. It's like, don't bend your knee if you like. I think this is a little bit of a different type of perspective to it, but
No,
it's
I see
like,
what you're saying though.
yeah,
I see exactly what you're saying though. It's like just because it's something you're comfortable with and it's going to be good, at least good, solid, and it's like not going to let you down completely. That doesn't mean you have to be like, okay, cool, take all of my money, take
just take
everything.
it all.
It's like have a backbone,
Self-respect
but
for yourself. Yeah.
and just like if John Schneider was able to recover from trading Russell fucking Wilson, I think you'll be okay and recover from letting Albert Rusnak walk.
With Sounders, with all these things, could we see them do these things like what the Seahawks have done? Is that something like, what would you say needs to be done? What do you think can be done? Will it happen? Let's close it off now with everything we talked about.
You know what they say when it comes to like overcoming an addiction? What's the first step?
Admitting it.
First step is recognizing you actually have a problem, and that's the first step here. It's like the first step is for the Sounders fans, organization, just to be like, we got a problem. We're kind of just mid. We're solid, but we're not great. And you have to come to the reconciliation that, hey, maybe Jordan Morris is not a designated player in 2026. Maybe our squad, our DPs could be better. Maybe we want to compete for championships again. That's the first thing. Maybe the squad's not going to get it done. As much as we like the Paulie Prime Times and the Jordan Morrises and Rusnak and all these guys, maybe this is not what's going to make us perennial MLS Cup contenders like we were in the 2010s. As far as kind of like designated player goes, if your team can consistently win games and even trophies when you're not on the field, you are not that important. Like, you are replaceable. You are expendable. Okay. Whereas like when Prime Raul was not starting,
It was
it's
bad.
like, fuck, we're cooked. I guess you could put Jordan Morris up there, but it's just not the same. When Nico Ladero, the engine of the team, was out in his peak, it's like, dude, what? We have no shot. And those guys in the playoffs were carrying the team think of 2019 Western Conference Final against LAFC. That is literally Raul and Nico just going, "Yep, get on my back, boys," and they carried us all the way to the final. Again, Raul scored. Nico played great in the final. And then in 2016, being last place, Ladero coming in, being like, "Get on my back. I will take us to the promised land." And he single-handedly brings us to the playoffs. That is designated player stuff. That is legendary stuff. And Albert Rusnak is just not that. The team arguably plays better without him. And at the very most, the most credit I'll give is they'll play slightly better with him. Because with or without him, they're a team that will still be first round exits, anywhere between third, fourth, fifth, sixth in the standings, and they're able to potentially win a trophy here and there. They are with or without Albert Rusnak, and that is telling of a player that should not be on a designated player contract. And the second thing is, as much as Rothrock can have these big moments against Colorado Rapids and teams like this. First of all, I will definitely give him way more grace because he's a senior squad player. He's a senior $600K a year kind of guy. He's not making the millions like Albert and Briss. So the fact that he's even just contributing is good enough for me. But as far as being like your marquee player, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough getting it done against the Rapids and Sporting Kansas City and whatever shitter you want to throw out there. It's not good enough because when we had DPs in the past, or even just TAMs or whoever, they were still getting it done against those same teams, but also getting it done against high-end competition and in the playoffs as well. So, yes, it's cool to see Rothrock go from where he was to where he is now. It is cool to see like that kind of growth. But as far as building a championship team, and even we can talk about MLS Cup playoffs, but building a team that can win games in the regular season, that can contend for supporters' shields even, because not only just for the shield, but for playoff placing, because that's the biggest reason we get bounced. A lot of the biggest reasons we get bounced is because we're playing on the road so often. And again, it's just we need players that can put that whole complete season together, not just cherry picking on the bums of the world, the St. Louis, the Colorado Rapids, the Dynamo, the whoever you want to put in there.
There's an interesting discourse with fans, and I don't want this to come off like negative, because I don't think it is. Obviously, we're not saying the team is horrible. It's not. And I think the Sounders have a strong foundation, and I will stand on that. I just think there's a lot of stuff that has been going on that has been really being swept under the rug, not by everybody, but I think I think it becomes a collective. It's a domino effect where if you keep this up, things will compound to maybe get even worse. We don't know. I could be wrong, but it could happen. I remember when I started the channel, from now, I think the decision making has compounded significantly. Where we talking about like we talked about with the DPs, with some of the sales. We didn't even touch upon that in this video because it wasn't what was discussed. But for example, that's even another point to it too. But I think the main gist of what we're trying to say is the team isn't bad. We're not saying the team is horrible. There's just been a lot of questionable decisions that people are batting an eye to. And then when there's things like, for example, like Leagues Cup, I think people bring, I don't mind people bringing up Leagues Cup, but if you're going to bring up Leagues Cup as a point of your argument, like, oh, we're not a wash team, we just won Leagues Cup, there's context behind that, where it's like, well, we did win Leagues Cup, but if your two highest paid players are not contributing really to that, if those guys are not playing and or not contributing anyway, then why do we have them? And then you see the league growing. You're seeing, and again, it's not saying that, oh, because Minnesota got James on a TAM doesn't mean they're going to go win MLS Cup, but it is a business, and you sell jerseys, you get butts in seats, you get fans excited. These are important factors, and we used to do that. And I think people batting an eye, being like, oh, we're not ambitious. And ambition is not in regards to like, we don't win trophies. I think people are getting this mixed up. Ambition is, still trying to achieve the best, being cutthroat, not taking people sloppy seconds, still having high standards for yourself. And I think that's kind of the gist of this video is I think our standards have dropped. And I think if you don't correct that, then things could get even worse. And I think that's kind of seeing what the Seahawks have done with being cutthroat, having the backbone to be like, if you want to make this much money, go try it elsewhere.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on that real quick. It's like, I'd say even to a grander scale, it's like, hey, Jordan Morris, we're renewing your contract, if you want to have a DP contract or even a DP clause, that's cool. We're going to either make it extremely high to where, like, if you hit this, then you are unquestionably a DP, or you're going to have to go find that contract somewhere else instead of making it such a cookie, cupcake, pizza party DP incentive that he can just hit just
And
like
for
that.
and for
Like,
people that may not know about it, what do you mean by this incentive that you're talking about?
yeah, so when Jordan Morris got renewed, there was an incentive in his contract to where if he had a certain number of goal contributions in a season, it would up his pay to where he would be making DP money. And I don't know what the exact number was, but the season in which he got that, he only had like 13 goals and a few assists, and it was a goal contributions total. So first of all, my striker, my number 9 for a championship team, I want him pushing for 20 goals. Raul Ruidiaz paced out his stats when if he had stayed healthy, crushing 20 goals in several seasons. You know, that's the level that's the standard that we were used to for so long. All of a sudden, we just don't care about that anymore. Like, if you're not cracking 20 goals scored, to me, you're not a DP level striker. If you're not like in the 18, 19, 20 up there, I can't justify a
And
DP
we're just
contract.
purely talking MLS too, everybody. Like this is
It's
just
just
MLS.
and not goal contributions, goals, like straight up goals. Um, Goal contributions, I guess, more on like the 25, 30 range, but again, like it might seem like a lot, but dude, this is what Ladero, this is what Raul was doing, Oba, this is what our guys were doing, and we're not trying to be like the rest. We're trying to be like how the
What we've
Sounders have
already
been for the
achieved.
longest time.
Yes.
You were
What the
trying to
floor was
be
already set at.
you were trying to be the best team in the league, if not top 3, perennial cup contenders. But anyways, just for me to close it out, just the quick final couple steps where I think we would need to do what we would need to do to actually have this happen is, first of all, be okay with saying goodbye. It is okay to say, Jordan Morris, you are a legend. We will miss you. You were one of the biggest homegrown success stories in MLS history. But it is okay to say goodbye. It is okay to say farewell. You've done the club many great things, but bye-bye. It's okay to do that. Hey, Albert, you won the CCL with us. Cool. It's okay to say goodbye. It is okay to part ways. It is okay to say goodbye. It's okay to move on. The Seahawks did it, and look where it got them. It doesn't have to be like either they're on my team or I hate them. You know, it's not like that. It's okay to say goodbye. And the final step would be comfortable being uncomfortable.
David
So when you
Goggins.
move, exactly, David
David
Goggins,
Goggins. Yes.
and then
Yeah.
like Rashford once said, his coach once told him, put yourself in situations
That's
where
my favorite
you're
saying.
not comfortable. That's
That's
my
my favorite saying.
But seriously though, put yourself in situations where you are not comfortable. Be comfortable in the unknown. You know,
Shit, dude,
it's
this
gonna
became
take
real
patience.
motivational real quick.
Dude, it's gonna be weird. You're gonna be like, where's Jordan? Where's Rusnak? Where's Brian? Like, where are all these guys? And maybe the first year or two, maybe it doesn't look as pretty. But if you're the Sounders organization and you have people in place that you should trust to rebuild the squad like you did in the past, you trusted Garth. Hey, we're gonna make a giant move. We're gonna get rid of our best ever player, and then we're gonna trust you to replace that void. And he did it tenfold. You know, so like it's gonna be uncomfy. It's gonna be weird, but it's okay. So that's all I gotta say for that. That's the 3 steps, the 3 first steps you have to take
the
to enter into Seahawks territory.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love that we ended off with some David Goggins, Marcus Rashford, LeBron James. We threw them all in there, and no, this was a
Exactly.
crossover of all types of things. But
That's
yeah,
all I'm about to say. Yeah, dude. If we're just talking Sounders and Seahawks, might as well get everybody, dude.
throwing everyone in this party.
And
Yeah,
then don't
but
forget, don't love your job, job your love. Okay.
it doesn't end. But yeah, I think that's a good way to conclude. Again, this was just a for fun video. I thought that would be, again, just stirring the pot, asking the questions. But I thought this was a little bit more of a deeper analysis, and I think a very fun comparison to make with the Seahawks. I think a lot of you, surprisingly, less so with me, because obviously I don't watch any other sport other than this sport, but You know, I even had some enjoyment listening to it. When Brody initially sent me the 20 odd minute voice note, it wasn't actually, but talking about this whole thing. So I definitely enjoyed it. And per usual, boys and girls, make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment, because mine and Brody's opinion only matters so much. Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below on everything we talk about. I didn't think this video was going to be this long, but it was. And boys and girls, I hope you'll have a lovely day.